Hello, everyone. Okay, so I'm laughing because I just had a cold shower. It's really cold, and then yesterday I had lightheaded. I felt lightheaded because I had too much sodium. I might post videos now about Meniere's disease. It's a rare disease, but I can talk about that later. Um, in any case, we're not here for this one. We're here for another chart of someone, and that is okay, Miss Marvel. Oh, Miss Captain Marvel herself, or the one who plays Captain Marvel, Brie Larson. Okay, so this is what it's going to be about. So, as we go into this chart, I just kind of wanted to say that I noticed, if you notice something here, those who've been doing astrology as much, there's a shape here that's pretty dominant. You see all these right there? You see all these oppositions? And then you have square, and then you have a square from here to here, from here to here. So that in itself is, I think it's called a T-square, specifically with cardinal T-square. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but yeah. So you have oppositions here. So this triangle shape is the one that stood out right away. Very obvious. The focal planets are obviously right here. The big sort of, you could say, outer planets with Mars and the Sun right here, and then these two planets, specifically Jupiter and Chiron here. So to start off, first of all, because we're going to focus more on the Sun here, and this is where it's kind of hitting everything, and the Sun is a very big portion of a person's identity, of course, is who they are. We're going to go straight into how that affects her relationships. He's a Sun in Libra, but also Mars in Libra. You see that 8-8 right there? That's that's what you call a perfect conjunction. Or is it accurate or whatever. It's a perfect conjunction because it's exactly 8 degrees. Well, not by the minutes, but I still consider it perfect conjunction because it's 8 degrees, 8 degrees. There is something to be said about the minutes, which I don't want to get into because I saw a video once and they were talking about it, and it was kind of like, okay, that's interesting, but I don't know. So, but because Sun was in Libra, she's kind of like typical Libra, and it's also in the 7th house, so it makes sense. Remember, this is not relocation astrology, this is natal astrology, so that means it's just how, not just, sorry, it is actually most of what, I guess you can say, reveals most of how she typically is, like in her path that she's in. This is her whole chart, her path, her life right now. But because Sun is in Libra, so she's very like the people pleaser kind of thing. Really gets along with well, diplomatic, peace loving, all those things. But can also have there's always a polarity in all of ours and what we do. Right, it's basically the shadow thing, where it's if you're not peace loving, then that means we're kind of argumentative. Right, that's really Libra. If we're not diplomatic, then we're disagreeing, or we're kind of like we choose sides. So that's kind of the extreme side of Libra here. And if we're not balanced, then we're imbalanced, right? But that's part of the whole life process. It's shadow work and all those things. With Sun in Libra there, you also have to look into Venus. Where is Venus? Right here. So Venus was in Scorpio. So that means that she also carries, there's an undertone, an undertone or coloring of Scorpio in herself, like what she identifies with. She likes kind of, I would say, mysterious, sort of deep things, things that are just strange and taboo, and also not only unusual but more the occult stuff. So she might be into things like astrology as well, spiritual things, things that are just things that most people don't really get into, right? So she might be into that as well. Considering also that Mars is conjunct to her Sun, it's perfect conjunctions, right here, perfect conjunction. She's very much like this Martian personality. So Mars in Libra is a person who's indecisive about their actions. So this kind of expresses the way she reveals herself. Maybe people might see her one way and another way as well. Not so much that they see her, more like that's what she identifies with. So she kind of like reveals that to the world or to herself, how she identifies with what makes her happy. What makes us happy is probably like really like getting along with so many people, right? So there's always, she doesn't really take sides. However, because Venus was in, close that, because Venus was in Scorpio, it colors that. There's wateriness to her, her sun. So in this case, Venus rules her sun. Venus also rules her Mars, which is interesting because that makes her more sensual than sexual. But there is sort of a sexuality there because it's Mars. Mars is virility, Mars is aggression, Mars is anger, assertiveness, going action taker, those kind of things. So she pretty much is an action taker, but also in a very sort of more subtle way because of Scorpio. Scorpio is water, right? So water is a little, it's denser than air. So that means that her behaviors are not so airy, but also watery. So that means that she has an emotional side to her. When she gets angry, it's kind of like there's a bit of, I guess you can say anger kind of comes off more vindictive. Not to be kind of, it's not really about vengeance, but yeah, it can be. So because Venus rules her sun and her Mars. And because of that, we also have to look into the 7th house, right? So she's definitely like, you don't see double air because it's not the moon. However, it kind of, because here the sun is not at home, but because the sun is in 7th house in Libra, and Libra rules 7th house, it kind of always has it feels right there. It feels like at home right there. It feels kind of like, not say at home, but yeah, it belongs there. And then we have to look into what sign rules the 7th house. This is Libra. This is Libra. So that means that right here. So that means that we definitely have to actually attach our analysis. We have to change our analysis, our interpretation of this into the bigger picture of the ascendant right here. Because that means that even though Libra is all about balance and all about harmony and all that stuff, it could also reflect back into her ascendant itself. Okay, 8 degrees Mars, 8 degrees Sun, but 7 degrees descendant. That means also 7 degrees ascendant. So it's opposition. So her Sun and Mars are in opposition to her ascendant in Aries. Typically, ascendant in Aries means people who are very like go-getters, people who are pioneers, who are very much like to lead, are able to work with people. There's a lot of energy of curiosity, a lot of energy of like, oh, it's this person. I guess you can say the happy-go-lucky sort of type. I'm not really sure. But the person who appears really like kind of aggressive in a way. Just like, do you see the role she played? Like, I mean, that's Captain Marvel right there, right? So they kind of fit into that role as well that they play. It's kind of interesting and funny at the same time, right? So, yeah, Ascendant in Aries is kind of like that. But then we also have the fact that we have opposition to Mars and Sun. So that means that how she expresses herself in a very Libra way, because that's in opposition to Ascendant, they might not really know who she is yet. They might not understand like, why is she behaving this, or why is it she's kind of like, in a way that kind of points out the whole indecisiveness in a way, sort of like like her houses are mostly like, not most of them, but they're kind of at home in the signs. Actually, it's kind of interesting, right? You look at it, Aries is right into the first house and is the cusp of the first house, which is Ascendant, and then we have Taurus, which is, yeah, it's still a cusp of the second. So it's kind of like the signs and the signs and the houses are all kind of working together. But that's something else. You also see here Pallas Athena was in 6 degrees in the 12th house. Actually, it's still 6 degrees in the 12th house. It's not it, but it's conjunct the first house, or rather the ascendant, the cusp of the ascendant, the cusp of the first house. So that means that Pallas Athena, because also it's in retrograde, you can see the R there. If you don't, I don't know if you can see that. So Pallas Athena. So there's a lot of like wisdom and sort of inner guidance and sort of protection that's happening for her. I'm going to cheat here a little bit and go back into Pallas Athena because I want to kind of sort of myself interpret it this way. So Pallas in Aries is keenly aware of your path and what helps to hinder it. Pallas Athena in the first house, similarly, it's no nonsense. You know what you want, and no one gets in your way. So there's a certainty of path. There's a certainty of like one's, I could say also physical body. So there's a lot of wisdom going on there. Psychic abilities, healer. It's the female version of Chiron, apparently, according to this source I have. Equates power to the mind and spirit. Believes in one should rule the bodies and emotions. Fits right in actually the first house, doesn't it? But to higher self, to your higher, links itself to the higher self. It's an asteroid, guiding you toward the truth of your earthly plane of existence. It's to wake you up and make you aware of what you already know. So again, there's that inner wisdom. I would say that's wisdom. Okay, yeah, there you go. Where you have wisdom indicates the areas of life where you can take care of yourself and you don't need help or guidance. So, with Pallas Athena being there, I would say the way people see her, there's still a bit of an awe, kind of a mystery to it because it is in the 12th house. So she might kind of almost subconsciously, but almost automatically reveal that to people, and that's what they see, that she kind of has this sort of ability to just be not only independent, also because of Aries, but also because it's in the first house. It's knowledge and or more like wisdom and independence of knowing what to do with her physical health, her appearance, how she approaches. So it might, even though people might see there's a confusion, there's an opposition between her sun Mars here to her ascendant, and because it's in the descendant, it's almost like she comes off first uncertain, or that they don't know what she's all about, and there might be kind of like anger issues, or might be sort of assertiveness that people don't like, but at the same time they start to realize that, oh, that's just who she is. Eventually when you have an opposition, right, you have to come to terms with everything. You have to balance it. So it's balancing what she knows about her appearance, how she appears to the world, her role, how she packages herself, her physical body as well, in terms of how she relates with the world in general, or rather relationships, actually, not world in general. But in a way, yeah, that's true. That too, right? So there's that. I would say she's probably coming to terms with it. I'm not really sure. But I'm just assuming that right now because positions usually kind of make us more aware of things that we're not really aware of, especially because now we have Pallas Athena there. So I wanted to kind of point out also the squares that's been happening here. So you have square, right? So we have square, Sun, Mars, square. Actually, let's go back to... So we have to look at the Sun. So Sun is now in the 7th house. I'm going to go back, sorry. The Sun is in the 7th house, but the Sun rules the 5th house. So like I said in my previous videos, my later videos about natal astrology, I never did this before, where because the Sun is also, the Sun is the 7th house, but the Sun rules Leo, we have to look at Leo. Where is Leo at? So Leo is right at the 5th house, and also Leo rules the 5th house, so that means the Sun is by extension, the Sun, her 7th house issues, stuff like that, or anything sort of 7th house stuff, extends out into 5th house stuff. So romance, children, recreational activities, things that are fun, things that we enjoy, that's very much the Sun. But also because Leo